can see what's going on here. If you are just arriving, welcome, welcome. You are looking at a video of where we are located, our headquarters, at least right now. Temporarily, I am in Los Angeles, but our headquarters is in the town of Grass Valley up in Northern California. So if anything is supportive of a balanced stress response, for me, that is time in nature. So, what I'm going to be talking about today, likely there'll be no big revelations. Sometimes it's like a good book. You have to go back to it to be re-inspired time and time again. So I'm just going to give you some high points and some tips on how to support a healthy stress response. I'm not a practitioner. I'm not here to treat, cure, or to mitigate disease. I'm just passing on some information that has been helpful for me in my life on things that I do to support a healthy stress response. If you're making any changes to your health protocol, I always recommend going to a qualified healthcare practitioner to design a protocol, suggestions, recommendations that are appropriate to you and your particular needs. So with that being said, I'm going to take myself off the video cam so we could focus on the information. And again, it's simple suggestions that I am here to remind us about. Perhaps it never hurts to get a reminder at times of things we could do. Again, this is that email. Thank you for joining us. For your complimentary sample, please email customerservice@cannajointrelief.com. Our thank you to you. So let's talk about stress response. There is a lot going on in our bodies when stress is triggered. In fact, if we look at this particular, hang on here, I'm going to move this so we could actually see that. Yes, my skills in PowerPoint serve me well. So if we take a gander at this chart here, it's simply describing from top to bottom in very simplistic terms what happens in our bodies when stress is triggered. Thank God we have stress. You know, there's a reason for that stress response. It helps us activate when there is some sort of threat or danger. It quickens our thinking. It quickens our ability to move physically quicker. It is indeed called fight or flight, and it all starts in the brain. There's an attack, our brain perceives that attack, and after that happens, chemicals are released, hormones are released, the whole physiological set of reactions is triggered. Now that's great because we need that stress response, again, in times of danger. But after the danger is past, ideally we would go back to homeostasis, to balance. And when that happens, our bodies go back to producing the immune support cells. It goes back to strengthening bone density, working on bone density. It goes back to more energy for other things that need to happen, like digestion, immune health in our bodies. So we don't want to live in that stress response, but what is happening for a lot of people is that we are living in that stress response. Maybe we're overloading on the news, on politics, we've been indoors too long, and that fight or flight, that stress response, and all those chemical triggers, those physiological triggers are happening more often than not for many of us. That's not a good thing. You know, when we are triggered into that fight or flight, one of the things that happens is immune function starts to slow. So getting a handle on a healthy stress response could support us today and throughout our lives, of course. And I'm not here to tell you that we could take something. We could start taking any one of my favorites like GABA or Liquid Bliss from Wish Garden, and that's going to take care of the problem. Wouldn't that be nice? Just a little squirt of Liquid Bliss by Wish Garden, and our stress response is magically balanced. These things, these dietary supplements may be able to help, but ultimately, I am very big on supporting the pillars of health the fundamental pillars of health: nutritious diet, restorative sleep, movement, time in nature, calming practices. So I'm going to just hit a couple high points here. Again, nothing earth-shattering, but like a good book, sometimes we just need some reminders. Under the category of nutrition, I just needed to give a special shout out to our friend sugar. Yes, sugar. It is really ultimately, if consumed too much, too long, we all know that it's not good for our health. When you're talking about our ability to handle stress and sugar consumption, certainly that sugar consumption may feel good in the moment as it's triggering these feel good chemicals in our brain. I taste that sugar, I eat that chocolate, I'm starting to feel dopamine perhaps, or perhaps serotonin being triggered. I feel great. And then after about 20 minutes, as you know, the sugar drop happens and sends me on a particular roller coaster of emotions, making it more difficult for me to handle stress. Sugar is such a big factor. I know that to help balance my sugar consumption, I lean upon the bottom line here: a healthy diet. The healthier my diet is, the less I crave those hardcore sugars. Even when I'm over consuming too much fruit, especially those sweet summer fruits, it could have that same sort of emotionally unstable action on me. So I really need to be careful of my sugar consumption so I could handle, for many reasons, let's be honest, for many reasons, but because our topic today is stress, for me to be able to handle stress more effectively, I need to keep a handle on my sugar consumption. And when you're talking about nutrition to help do that, protein for me is key. I tend not to eat a lot of protein, enough protein I feel, but when I do, I have less of that sugar up and down and emotional instability, and more grounding, more footing, more ability to, again, react in a healthy way to stress. So fundamentally, and if we're talking during right now, the Corona pandemic, and certainly a healthy diet is going to be supportive to our immune system. That's a whole chapter in and of itself. Let's take a moment to talk about sleep. Certainly with our upturned lifestyles and lives, sleep can be even more elusive than it normally has been. Normally, there are millions of Americans suffering from insomnia, certainly not a laughing matter. Not laughing, I at times have been one of them. So what's happening now, again, during this pandemic, we are perhaps not being as physically active as we're used to being. Some of that may net result in a sort of sleeplessness. We're not burning off some of that physical anxiety with activity. So sleep and our ability to handle stress is fundamental. You and I both know, we all know, that when we do not get a good night's sleep, the next day, we can't handle stresses as efficiently, as effectively, if we had that good night's sleep. Fundamental to supporting a healthy stress response is sleep, nutrition, sleep, and certainly not rocket science, but I am here to remind you, one of the things that might be happening to many of us, I know myself right now, because I'm temporarily in Los Angeles, where there's a lot of extra light exposure, a lot of street lights, even at nighttime. There's a lot of emission of light in our world in general. So many people might be experiencing some potential disruption to their circadian rhythms, that rhythm that allows us to fall asleep when the sun sets and to wake up when the sun rises. This balance is called the circadian rhythm. Might be somewhat off for many people, in part because of the excess light exposure. Now, what happens with that light exposure is in the center of our brains, there's this pineal gland, this little gland, as you could see, in the center of our brains. And it is very, very sensitive to light and light exposure. So when it is overexposed to light, that circadian rhythm may be thrown off. I know for me, one of the things I've done in the past to help support a healthy, restful night's sleep in this regard is to incorporate low milligrams of melatonin now and then, and typically only, in fact, when I travel to different time zones. One recent tool that has really been supportive for me and many people through the years is a technique that apparently became popular in the military when they realized that fighter pilots, those flying the planes, were experiencing lack of sleep and were making a lot of mistakes. And when you're in the military and you're flying a fighter plane, your mistake is potentially deadly. So they apparently devised this plan or this way to allow the soldiers to fall asleep. And one way they would test them or train them is to have them fall asleep in a chair sitting up. A very difficult situation. So these techniques have allowed the troops to fall asleep quickly and use what time they have. Now I'm going to describe this technique. It's going to sound perhaps very rudimentary, very simplistic, but if you are like me where you have occasional sleep challenges, I know for me it has been very effective. So where they start is by relaxing the face muscles. I mean, just try it right now. There's a lot of tension starting up in the brain cavity. That's often typically where it starts, right? In our thoughts, in our brains. So there's a lot of stress being held above the shoulders, in fact, around the face. And the face has over 43 muscles. So when they say relax the face, they say relax the face muscles. Over 43 muscles in the face alone. So you start by relaxing those cheek muscles, relaxing the jowls, relaxing the neck, the front of the neck, relaxing the muscles surrounding the eye sockets, the muscles between the brows, the muscles of the forehead. There are 43 muscles in the face. Typically, this is where I fall asleep. But then if need be, you go to the shoulder and arm muscles. Again, not just relaxing the shoulders, but think of each one of those muscles dropping deep into your mattress as they drift off. And then finally, the leg muscles. I've never made it there. I've never made it to the shoulders. I've never made it to the arms. Just a simple technique that has been now used through the years for those that need to fall asleep quick in those short sliver of times where they have that opportunity. So the word is out. And by my nightstand, I have Sleepy Nights by Wish Garden. I love Wish Garden. You know, they have Catherine's, and I have a difficult time pronouncing her last name, but Catherine, the classic traditional herbalist behind Wish Garden. She has some fantastic formulations. So this is on my nightstand, Sleepy Nights, just in case. And the ever elusive lifestyle considerations that we close up with: movement, time in nature, calming practices. You know what your tool belt includes in this category. Those things that during this time of lockdown and pandemic may have been more and more elusive. So as we re-emerge, let's try to recapture or regain some of those tools that help us support that healthy response to stress. You know what your tool belt includes. I know for my tool belt, as we get near the end here, excuse me, my tool belt includes, excuse me, working with the essential oils. One of my favorites is lavender. It's a classic to help with calming. Just the smell. If I fly, I typically have a little essential oil on my person somewhere handy. Often it's either lavender or clary sage. Classic herbs to help calm us down, to help support a calm response. Lavender certainly tops that chart. Very simple things we could do. Find your fragrance, your smell, your essential oil that resonates and calms your spirit when you smell it. I know it's not for everyone, but your girl loves essential oils. So adaptogens, helping us adapt to stress. That is the classic definition of an adaptogen, simply stated. Adaptogens help us adapt to stress according to tradition and emerging research. And some of my favorites you see here are ashwagandha. This is out of a garden in India, quite nondescript if you ask me, growing low to the ground. Ashwagandha, a classic from the Ayurvedic Indian tradition as an adaptogen. Rhodiola, eleuthero, and holy basil. Adaptogens to consider. And as we head into the final moments here, again, some of my favorites. I don't like to rely on supplements for health. I like to supplement a healthy lifestyle with a supplement. So reishi, considered the king of mushrooms, supporting longevity according to tradition, been used for thousands of years. I find it very calming to my shen, as it would be called in traditional Chinese herbalism. I also like to travel and have by my nightstand GABA. GABA, a neurohormone coming from our brains that helps support a calm mind. And two of my favorites from Wish Garden, Emotional Ally and Liquid Bliss. Liquid Bliss contains a little bit of theobromine, a little bit of cocoa nib, so it does have a little boost in a sort of a stimulant like cocoa. That's certainly two of my favorites. So there you have it. Again, nothing earth-shattering, but I'm here to remind you that these simple things can really make a difference to our ability to handle stress as we move forward and reemerge from this pandemic. Any one of these things in any given moment could really help support the health of that stress response. We're all dealing with it. We all got our thing going on here. I am here to support you, so don't hesitate to reach out. The 800 number, I'm accessible, so again, you could call me, you could email me directly. I do receive the customer service emails for Canna Joint Relief, and if you would like your complimentary sample, this is the email to send and let me know where you would like your sample sent. So stress response, it's what it's all about. I am here to support you through this, and let me know how best I could do that. Thank you so much for joining me today. Have a fantastic day. Appreciate your time.